Did you know that a single individual now controls more satellites than the rest of the world combined, and the US government has become completely dependent on him for everything from military communications to White House internet access? We're talking about Elon Musk and Starlink, and what's happening behind the scenes is reshaping American power in ways most people don't even realize. When Starlink launched its first satellites in 2019, it seemed like just another ambitious Elon Musk venture aimed at providing global internet connectivity. Fast forward to 2025, and we're looking at a fundamentally different reality. Starlink now operates over 7,500 satellites, representing nearly two-thirds of all active satellites orbiting Earth. But here's what makes this story truly unprecedented. The U.S. government, from the Pentagon to the White House itself, has quietly become dependent on this private network for critical national security operations. The scale of this transformation is staggering. The Department of Defense has created Starshield, a militarized version of Starlink specifically designed for government customers, with capabilities including target tracking, optical reconnaissance, and early missile warning systems. This isn't just a commercial contract we're talking about. The National Reconnaissance Office has committed $1.8 billion to this program, representing the most significant privatization of military satellite communications in American history. What's particularly striking is how this dependency has spread across every branch of the military. Naval warships are conducting extensive testing of Starlink terminals. The Army has deployed Starshield units across entire divisions. The Space Force increasingly relies on SpaceX for both launch services and satellite communications. One military official recently noted that during exercises, you couldn't take 10 steps without tripping over a Starshield terminal. That's how pervasive this dependence has become. But the military integration is just the beginning. At least 9 federal agencies now rely on Starlink services, including the Federal Aviation Administration, Customs and Border Protection, and remarkably, the White House itself. Think about that for a moment. The seat of American executive power is using internet infrastructure controlled by a private citizen. The installation of these terminals at the White House was conducted by Musk's Department of Government Efficiency team, and according to reports, this happened without proper security protocols.
The Federal Aviation Administration is actively considering replacing its existing $2.4 billion contract with Verizon for air traffic control communications with Starlink services. We're talking about systems that keep commercial aircraft safely separated in American airspace. Musk has offered to provide these services at no cost to taxpayers, but this raises a fundamental question. What are the real costs of such dependencies? And what happens when critical infrastructure becomes dependent on private charity? The numbers behind this transformation reveal the economic leverage that's been accumulated. SpaceX's revenue is projected to reach $15.5 billion in 2025, with approximately 80% coming from Starlink services. The company has secured over $22 billion in federal contracts across various agencies, making it one of the largest defense contractors in the United States. Following changes to broadband funding rules, Starlink became eligible for the federal government's $42 billion Rural Broadband Initiative, opening the door to billions in additional funding. This economic relationship has created what government officials privately acknowledge as contracts that are too critical to cancel, given the company's role in defense and space operations. That assessment was made during a review of SpaceX contracts following Musk's public disagreements with political leaders, and it underscores just how deeply embedded these dependencies have become. But perhaps the most dramatic demonstration of how this private infrastructure can impact national policy occurred during Ukraine's conflict with Russia. In September 2022, as Ukrainian forces launched a counteroffensive to retake occupied territories, Musk issued a directive to shut down Starlink coverage in specific regions, including the strategically vital Kherson area. This unilateral decision, made without consultation with U.S. government officials, directly hindered Ukrainian military operations and forced troops to abandon planned encirclement maneuvers against Russian forces. Ukrainian officials reported that the sudden loss of communications caused chaos among troops, disabled drone operations, and prevented long-range artillery units from effectively targeting Russian positions. One military official stated that the encirclement stalled entirely and failed as a direct result. This incident revealed the extent to which a private individual could override state policy decisions through control of critical infrastructure. The international implications are equally concerning.
America's closest allies have begun viewing Starlink as a potential threat to their own strategic autonomy. Italy's consideration of a $1.5 billion investment in Starlink services sparked intense debate within European circles. Italian President Sergio Mattarella expressed skepticism, stating that more than Musk's word, they need assurances he can't shut down service, and especially that he can't access sensitive data. Poland, despite being a major supporter of Ukraine and a significant funder of Starlink services in that country, has emphasized the importance of maintaining multiple satellite providers to avoid overdependence on any single system. Their foreign minister noted that in peacetime, you want the best service at the best price, but in wartime, you want redundancy and multiple systems, so that if one fails, you can still use others. The regulatory framework in the United States has struggled to keep pace with these developments. The Federal Communications Commission, which regulates satellite communications, operates within a narrow mandate focused on spectrum allocation and technical standards. It lacks the authority to address broader national security and strategic implications. The FCC's 2022 decision to revoke $885.5 million in rural broadband subsidies originally awarded to Starlink illustrates both the agency's limited leverage and how regulatory decisions become entangled with political considerations. Despite SpaceX's massive government contracts and Starlink's integration into military communications, there has been no systematic assessment of the strategic risks associated with this dependency. Recent revelations show that Musk and SpaceX have repeatedly failed to comply with federal reporting protocols aimed at protecting state secrets. The Air Force has denied Musk top-level security clearance due to possible security threats, yet the dependency on his infrastructure continues to grow. This situation has prompted other major powers, particularly China, to accelerate their own satellite constellation development as a countermeasure to perceived American technological hegemony. Chinese military analysts have identified Starlink as a direct threat to global strategic stability, arguing that its dual-use nature and close integration with U.S. military operations represents a militarization of space. China's development of competing constellations, including the Guowang and Hongyun projects, reflects a broader pattern of technological bifurcation driven partly by concerns about Starlink's influence.
The economic incentives create powerful reasons for continued dependence on Starlink, even as policymakers recognize the strategic risks. The service's cost advantages over traditional alternatives, combined with superior performance characteristics, make it difficult for government agencies to justify alternatives, even when strategic considerations suggest diversification would be prudent. This economic lock-in is reinforced by technical dependencies that become more entrenched over time. Government systems designed to work with Starlink protocols, user terminals configured for specific satellite constellations, and operational procedures built around Starlink's capabilities create switching costs that rise with each passing year. The result is a self-reinforcing cycle where short-term economic efficiency undermines long-term strategic flexibility. What we're witnessing represents a fundamental challenge to traditional concepts of democratic governance and public accountability. When critical national infrastructure falls under private control, the mechanisms of democratic oversight become attenuated or disappear entirely. Musk's ability to make unilateral decisions affecting military operations, foreign policy, and government communications operates outside normal democratic processes, creating what governance experts describe as corporate sovereignty in space. The precedent established by Starlink's rise creates a template for other private actors to accumulate similar influence over critical infrastructure. As satellite internet becomes increasingly important for economic and social functions, the potential for private actors to exercise quasi-governmental power through infrastructure control will only grow. So here's the question we need to be asking ourselves. Have we inadvertently created a situation where American strategic autonomy depends on the goodwill of a single individual? And if so, what does that mean for the future of democratic governance in an age of private technological power? The implications extend far beyond telecommunications to encompass fundamental questions about power, accountability, and the nature of sovereignty in the modern era. What do you think? Are we looking at the inevitable future of critical infrastructure, or a dangerous concentration of power that needs to be addressed? Share your thoughts in the comments below.